you heard Lex Friedman talk about it, though? Lex was on my podcast
fully through your podcast
the other day.
I'd be interested to hear what he has to say. Yeah.
He said Chat 4.0 is on the way.
Oh, that's right, because it has more information that's going to be available.
It's going to be way better.
See, I listened to Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT. I heard he got a question about the fourth version because there is a lot of speculation that it's going to be like a whole other universe in terms of its capabilities, that it's going to be more closely approximating actual intelligence in a way that's going to really super freak people out. Like that's what a lot of people like Lex and others, I guess, are projecting. He was really trying to pour cold water on that idea, but that may just be because he doesn't want to get it overhyped. He wants to set the bar low so that when the thing actually drops, it lands with a appropriate, I guess, fanfare.
The real thing of concern is that this didn't exist 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and now it exists and it's gotten better really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe it did exist 2 years ago, but it wasn't publicly consumable.
It didn't have a chat function.
Right.
That was a thing.
See, that's the thing is actually, this was, again, listening to this interview with Sam Altman, he was talking about how he was actually really surprised by the way that the public, when they got to play with it, were like, oh my God. Because in his mind, working so closely with the technology, this just felt like the next logical step. But for people who hadn't been deeply, enmeshed in the details of the technology, when suddenly you had this thing in front of you and you could play with it, and then you've got this like the image generators and whatever, that it kind of blew people's minds. And we've been talking about how you've got universities professors who are freaked out.
Yeah, this is our favorite.
About kids cheating on tests and using this to write their essays and whatever. And so I do think it's going to require a kind of entire rethink of the university experience, of which parts of what human beings can do are more difficult to replicate by the machine. Because the machine can spit out a Sagar and Jetty theoretical UFO monologue, but it can't create new ideas, right? It's lacking a sort of like creativity.
For now.
For now. Yes, for now.
For now. That's the real thing is for now. Because I think it's going to. And I think within 5 years, it's going to be better at us. Oh. Better at being us than us.
But that's actually important, and it's one of the fun things that we're seeing through the ChatGPT education, which I love. And actually, it's fascinating. We get a ton of feedback on those segments because it's a lot of college kids are fed up with bullshit busy work. A lot of professors are tearing up their entire syllabus, and they're like, all right, now we're going to go to oral examination. We're going to have a discussion in class. And I was like, that's great. That's fantastic. You shouldn't be doing a bullshit essay first draft.
But that also teaches you how to write, which is actually important.
Actually, I don't know if it does, actually.
Well, it could.
Well, yes.
Well, but if you have... So the comparison they make is to like the... invention of the calculator.
Yeah.
It's like you still need to understand the math to know what to put into the calculator.
Right.
But you don't need to know how to do all that shit by hand.
Can we pause this? I have to pee so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Let's use the restroom. We'll be right back. Woo!
All right, we're back.
Think so much better.
What
were we?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
Yes.
Colleges.
And cheating.
Yeah.
And I do think part of the freak out right now is because most automation that has like killed people's jobs has been service workers, it's been blue collar. And now you have a lot of white collar workers who are like, oh shit, this could be coming for me.
Did you see the BuzzFeed thing? That
No, I did
BuzzFeed
not.
hired ChatGPT, or is going to use ChatGPT to auto-generate listicles.
Yeah, they laid off.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
they just laid 10% of their staff off.
Oh my
Right.
God.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
and by
this
the
is
way,
the big fear,
and their
right?
stock, didn't their stock like
Yeah, their stock went up by,
skyrocket?
I want to say 95% in a single day.
Fire people.
Yeah.
Give you more money.
Yay! Hooray! What a great system we have.
Not great. Yeah.
But doesn't that leave room for Substack people?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
doesn't it leave room for creators that you get an obvious look into their mind and they take pride in their writing? I would say to young kids, I would say fuck around with ChatGPT. I would say figure out what it does because it's an important thing. But learn how to write. I think it's good for you. And I think if you want to get better at whatever you're doing that requires writing, like if you're going to be a journalist, even if you use ChatGPT to give you a framework, you should learn how to be creative.
Absolutely.
It's good for you.
Yeah.
I do think that's a good point, and it's where the calculator analogy kind of fails because the calculations are the calculations. There's no
Yes.
like style or voice that goes into it.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, Sagar and I write a lot every single week. I know you write a lot as part of, being a comedian. And when you do that a lot over time, you develop your own voice. You develop your own style that you maybe aren't going to come to if you're starting with the ChatGPT framework. Even if you're not just wholesale, like taking whatever chat gives you and like selling that off as your own, even if you're taking it and workshopping, whatever, it's not quite the same as staring at the blank piece of paper and creating it in your voice.
And the satisfaction that you get.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The satisfaction when you write something that you enjoy, that you're like, oh, I did a lot of work on this, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we write these monologues for the show, and like we do 3 a week. So some of them are going to be great, some of them are going to be, solid, some are going to be like, it was a bit of a struggle. But when you get that one that it's like you have the idea and you're able to lay it out in a way that you feel like really captures what you were trying to say and like makes a point that you feel like hasn't been made before, it's wonderful.
That's why I'm celebrating it with the classroom, though, because I had to do, when I was in college, like, we had so many bullshit, like, busy work quizzes that they were just doing to assign so they could check a box on the syllabus. Now, they're sitting in the classroom being like, what do you think? They have to test you live to see if you're either paying attention. I think that's great. Like, that's ultimately, like, what did we really get out of college? Like, I don't know. In terms of what I use right now, even you were talking about writing, a lot of that was bullshit academic writing. When I learned how to write for journalism, it's totally different. It's like all the opposite rules, actually, in terms of the way you do it. But from what's useful in life is being able to understand ideas. Part of what our show is, consider an alternative point of view. The famous Plato quote, "It's the mark of an intelligent mind to consider an opinion, something like an opinion that he doesn't necessarily agree with." I'm butchering it, but that is what you could possibly get out of higher education today. Coming together, taking a 4-year pause in your life, talking with this professor. There's a professor right now at UPenn, Wharton, who's actually requiring ChatGPT in the classroom. He's like, no, for entrepreneurship, we're all going to use it. We're going to learn how to use this tool together, and then we're going to talk about it in the classroom. That's what education actually can be. And so I talk a lot about higher education corruption, and really what it is to me is, places charging $80,000 a year, which is outrageous, putting these kids into debt and not teaching them anything which is actually useful in the real world.
Well,
and I think this is useful.
It's just like
learning.
It's just like a stamp of
approval.
It's a credential. It's a credential. Yeah. That's what it is. I mean, I will say, so I studied economics, and we obviously talk a lot about economics, but the shit that I learned was like, it was all very doctrinaire. It was all very like
supply and demand.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a lot of stuff I had to like unlearn the propaganda of.